Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Manhood Academy Interviews. Today we're interviewing a feminist. What would you like to go by?
I'll go by Susie.
Susie, okay. We'll call you Susie. And we'll post a link to your, I think you wanted your YouTube channel to be recognized, or at least somebody could go there and see some of your views. Anyway, we're going to be recording just the audio portion of this. We're going to distort the voices for your anonymity's sake, so you can be free to speak your mind. Of course, once we put your YouTube channel out there, you won't be so anonymous, but do you consent to be recorded before this interview starts?
I do.
Okay, we're just gonna all our interviews are unedited, other than just the voice distortion. So we just we don't chop a segment and then just take it out of context. We let the full interview go, so you can be rest assured that your full voice is going to be heard.
All right.
Cool. Okay. So I'm not sure how I got wind of. I might have gotten wind of one of your comments from either one of our site members, student, or we get news items from them all over the place. So I'm not exactly sure how, but I took a cursory glance at your channel and I realized, oh, you're a feminist and you had certain views about relationships and things, and I thought, well, what a great opportunity to hear from the feminist side, because usually we're when we at our academy, Manhood Academy, we have an ebook and it talks about the problems and dangers. We feel that feminism is a danger to society, but we don't usually get to hear the full feminist side of the story, because many of our critics are feminists and they come in to debate us. But we're doing an interview right now, so we just want to get your views on how you think feminism is affecting relationships and why you even need feminism.
Okay. Well, so is that your first question?
Yeah, first just a little background about how you got into feminism, like how you encountered it. What was your notion of it growing up, and then how you now identify as a feminist? How did that all come about? Let's hear that.
Well, I didn't really know much about feminism until I got into my upper years of high school, when I was about a junior, senior in high school.
Okay.
And before that, feminism was just kind of a word to me as a concept. It had been mostly presented as something positive, and I think there was always some acknowledgement that every group has its assholes, but for the most part, until I got to be a junior or senior in high school, I wasn't really involved with feminism. But when I did become involved, I
now when you say became involved, hold on a second. When you say became involved, do you mean you joined a formal group, or you just started identifying with the views of feminists?
Identifying, I guess.
Okay.
But and at first I just identified as a feminist, but as I did more and more research into what feminism actually is, I think from the early stages of me identifying as a feminist, it was very clear that there are schools of feminism, and feminists have debates with each other all the time, and we do not agree on very much.
Yeah.
Like, they're different.
I've seen that there's different schools that I've just in our encounters with feminists. There's they talk about the first wave, second wave, third wave, and we mostly know them practically, I guess, how they side on issues. For example, I would say the vast majority of feminists that we encounter are the ones that are kind of like the have your cake and eat it too type feminists, where they want to get the benefits of being a woman, the tradition and whatnot. Man pays for the date. Men are supposed to sacrifice for us, women and children first on lifeboats. But then at the same time, they want to get all the benefits of being a man. They want to be in a boardroom. They want to run things, etc. So they don't want to put in the sacrifice. They just want the benefits of being a man. And then there are I would say the more hardcore feminists who want to do equality straight down the line, where if you're qualified to do a fireman's job and you're a buff chick, then you should get that job, and there should be no pity for you if you're not qualified. You shouldn't get any benefits. It should be even Steven, 50-50 the whole way. And so there's obvious problems with that for other feminists, because the whole reason we have affirmative action hiring policies is because they'll say men have a natural strength advantage or some kind of intellectual advantage, and not enough women are here, or women don't have access to education, so we need to advance women's education more. So there's kind of these two main kind of oppositional types of feminism, where one is more hardline, it's straight 50-50, and men are competing against women. So we don't really, in their mind, there's kind of no it's kind of artificial, because in their mind there's no gender distinction. It's just pitted these two things called men and women against each other, and they are competing for equality. And the other side recognizes the differences, but they're taking advantage of the differences.
But I think that's a false dichotomy, though.
Okay, explain your side.
Because you might already be familiar with this, but have you heard Does feminist sex wars mean anything to you?
No. You're gonna have to explain it. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little background?
Well, the feminist sex wars was a period, I think it was during, I'd have to look it back up, but I think it was during second wave feminism. It started happening around the 80s, early 90s, where feminists were starting to have debates about, you know, what does it mean to objectify a person? What is it, you know, is pornography really always harmful to women in every circumstance? Right. And from this big debate sprung generally to schools. There are the sex-positive feminists who believe that not all porn is evil and that if a woman wants to be a prostitute, she should have the right to be a prostitute and that sex work isn't inherently degrading.
Oh, yeah, we've seen recently in the news different types of feminists warring over that issue of strippers. For instance, one side says, oh, it's a woman's body. She can do whatever she wants. If she wants to strip, that's up to her. More power to her. And the other group is saying, hey, we need to protect women. Women are victims. They're being exploited in the sex industry. So this is not what they really want, and it's exploitation of women. So you see two competing sides of feminism.
And not only that, but the people who are advocating for women's rights and sex workers' rights, you know, women to be able to perform sex work without judgment, they a lot of the sex-positive feminists, they're typically the ones who are defending these rights.
What's this term, sex-positive feminist? I think I know, and I've heard of it before, but just for our audience sake, could you clear it up a little bit?
A sex-positive feminist is a feminist who believes that sex work, in particular women performing sex work, is not objectifying towards women in every circumstance.
Got it.
I mean,
so like you go, girl. If you're going to strip, you're going to be a hooker, etc. It's all good as long as you choose it.
Yeah, and not only that, but a big part of their argument is actually that not all men are pigs, and a big part of the argument is, you know, men being sexually attracted to women is not always objectification. And the big debate between these two schools is what does it mean to objectify a woman or objectify just a person? And sex-positive feminists are defining objectification as you're lowering a human being to object status to the point where you're disregarding their thoughts, their feelings. You're treating them, they might as well be this pen.
Right.
But
well, we've heard that argument. You know, it's interesting you bring up objectification. We've heard that argument from feminists, which is a big argument for them, which is, or a big, one of their big items on their agenda, which is that women are being objectified. Women are being objectified by porn, by society. It even carries over into rape culture. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like there's just this either men or society or the media is trying to objectify women as kind of like a systematic thing, or do you just feel that's overstating it? Uh-oh. We lost connection with you. No! Come back. Come back to the light. We're going to have to pause our interview because we've lost our connection. We'll be right back. All right, we got her back. Okay, so, Susie, we were just talking about objectifying, women getting objectified, and you were going off on a point, and I just noticed your screen froze, but I wanted to ask you because a lot of feminists talk about women being objectified, whether it be in the media, by porn, by guys, and it carries over into like rape culture and issues that involve sexuality. Then there, it seems like feminists are very concerned about this issue. But then, like for instance, how does that play into, or how do feminists view men being objectified, or do they even think men are being objectified? First, let's talk about the female objectification issue. Go ahead.
All right, where was I? Right, well, the definition of objectification is what a lot of feminists are debating over. What does that mean?
So they haven't even established yet a consensus, even though they're kind of really fighting against it, at least socially. We see all the social policies being, out there. Stop objectifying women. So we see like campaigns about this, and you're telling me they haven't even established like what it means to be objectified?
It depends on what organization has launched the campaign, so that'd probably be a lot of research you'd have to do to see if this is a campaign you would support, or if they're just throwing out buzzwords like objectification when the way they're defining objectification might actually not really be fair. But would you like me to clarify how the two sides define it before we go on?
Yeah, why don't we talk about what they mean? What are the two issues as far as objectification goes? Because I know plenty of girls who have already said, just when they're speaking about the issues, and they're not like some news media outlet, but just in general, I would say there's kind of a general consensus of if you're a woman in porn, you're being objectified. If you're in the media and you're in an ad for Coca-Cola or a car, you're on there looking sexy, you're being objectified. So there's this kind of general consensus in women's minds about what objectification means.
Yeah, the side of feminism that I try to distance myself from, the feminists I don't agree with, are the, we call them sex negative or anti-sex work. They're the ones who are defining objectification as, I mean, this is a really simplistic, view, but the way we see it is they are defining objectification as, oh look, this woman is being presented as sexy. Obviously, she's being objectified, which is just fallacious, and it takes away from real issues of objectification. Like, sex positive feminists believe that men having a sex drive and men being attracted to women and women being presented as sexy isn't always objectification. Men being attracted to women, that's, you're not objectifying a chick if you're looking at her, you think she's hot. Like, it's okay as long as you're being respectful to her. But and I guess my personal view is, like, I could give you two examples of when a guy is giving me attention, I don't feel objectified, and when they're doing something that does make me feel objectified.
Okay, go ahead.
So, a lot of the time when I'm out in public, that, if I'm at a club or some social gathering, a lot of people I don't know, the guy who comes up to me and says, hi, how are you, what's your name, and, but still quickly establishes that he's interested in getting into the sack with me, like, that's not a problem. You want to get laid, it's okay. Everybody, we're humans, we're sexual beings.
I want to bang you.
It's okay. Yeah, and so, but that doesn't make me feel objectified. If he's still treating me like a human being, he's recognizing that I have thoughts, that I'm not, that I'm a person. If he's making some attempt to actually get to know a little bit about me, if I can tell he's listening to what I'm saying, just talking to me like I'm a person, as opposed to the guy who will just, like, who just grabs your ass and doesn't even ask for your name. He just doesn't even know, he just grabs your ass with no regard for how you might feel about that. That's objectification.
Okay,
but,
so you're kind of, are you crossing over? Like, are you saying, like, objectification is like what people would define as sexual assault? Like, if you're just walking down the street and you're, I don't know, wearing a tight dress and the guy grabs your ass, that to you is objectification.
It's one way to objectify a person, yes. There are other ways you can do it. There are things you can say to people that are objectifying and degrading.
Give me an example.
An example of something that could be objectifying to say to a woman might be, not sure. It wouldn't even be something like nice ass, because, that's, I don't know, it really depends on the context. I'm not sure if I can
that's what I think is the real problem is, people have left it up to women to define sexual objectification, and it's such an arbitrary standard, especially if you have to feel it or have a context for it, where there's no just some concrete definition that we could all be clear on.
Well, the concrete definition for sex-positive feminists, at least, is you're disregarding somebody's feelings. You're basically
but again, if we go by your feelings, it's such an arbitrary standard.
But I'm not done explaining.
Okay.
It's the act of removing their ability as a human being to have feelings about anything
How would I objectify you and then remove your feelings? Let's say I thought you had a hot ass and I said, oh, I want to tap that ass. How would that, in what way could I remove the feeling from that? How do I do that?
Well, if I told you that made me uncomfortable or something, and you just acted like you didn't care or said, like, that's stupid, or you just,
Okay, now let's examine the other part of that. Okay, so let's say guy says hot ass, and you say I don't appreciate that. Okay, so and he keeps on making comments. Oh, I want to bang you or something along those lines. So in your mind, that would be objectifying him, or he would be objectifying you, I should say.
Yeah, if he's not acknowledging the fact that I have an opinion on on that.
Okay, now let's look at the other side of that. Do you think women objectify men when they're dressing super sexy and not regarding male sexuality?
I don't think that is a way to objectify men. I think there are ways that women can objectify men. I think men objectify men and women objectify women all the time.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to provide a counter example to your example. For instance, you're saying that the guy, if he was to disregard, a woman's feelings about being sexually, being sexual with her or aggressive with her, and saying, "Hey, I think you're hot. I like your ass. I want to fuck you," etc. And she was saying that's over the line.
Or leave me alone. I don't want to hear that stuff.
Exactly. So that's one side of it. Now I want to put the shoe on the other foot and see if that is also objectification, where a woman disregards male sexuality, dresses sexy to get attention, doesn't take into account all the guys she's turning on. Isn't she objectifying them just as much?
I'm not sure I like the implication that a woman is necessarily dressing sexy to get attention, specifically. I mean, that is one reason, but, she's not asking for everyone's attention.
Right, but, if let's say you lather yourself in blood and chum and jump into the ocean, you may only want the attention of one fish, but doesn't blood and chum also attract sharks? I
don't think that's a fair analogy.
How so? Because I've heard women say the same thing. Like, for instance, they'll dress very sexy in a sexy tight dress, showing some cleavage off, and they like it when a certain guy comes up to them, but if another guy comes up to them, they're turned off. And how do you determine whether this outfit's for this guy or this outfit is for this guy? How do you determine that?
It's the way it's the kind of attention you get.
Yeah, but how do you determine what attention you're attracting is my question.
I'd like to not be interrupted.
All right, well, okay, I'd like to get a straight answer.
I'm trying, but you keep interrupting.
I'm trying to clarify your answer. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just trying to clarify your answer.
I could clarify if you'd let me.
Okay, go ahead. Clarify for me, please.
All right. So, what is objectification? It depends on the kind of attention you're giving somebody. Mm-hmm. If I don't think it's objectifying if I were to go to a club with like my tits practically popping out, and a guy comes up to me and says, "You are gorgeous. Those are some nice tits." I'd be like, okay, yeah. Even if he was old and yucky and I didn't think he was attractive, it's the words he uses. It's the way he treats you.
Yeah, but we already talked about the guy side. We're talking about the girl side now. What about the girl side?
Okay, let's say that a guy, we're at the beach and a guy's in a thong or something, and he's good looking, a bunch of chicks are bothering him. It depends on how those chicks are treating him. So I'm not saying there's a double standard.
I'm not talking about him being dressed in a mankini. I'm talking about a woman objectifying a man by treating him like an object. For example, if she's dressing up and she's going to attract every type of male who sees her, not just specific males, there's no way she can determine who she's going to attract. She's just dressing sexy. Males, just because of their biology, are going to be attracted, want to look to her, maybe talk to her, etc. So how is that not similarly objectifying men and not taking their feelings into account? For instance, let's say I'm walking along the beach. I don't want to be turned on. I'm just running, right? I'm running down the beach. And all of a sudden I see hot chicks out there. Aren't they objectifying me by just not taking my libido and my feelings into account? Or same if I'm out in the club or if I'm out shopping. I've been out shopping and seeing girls in amazing dresses or what have you with everything showing. And aren't they, I'm just trying to get something. I'm trying to do something and all of a sudden I'm distracted. Aren't they objectifying me and not taking my feelings into account by turning me on as a male? Taking advantage of and exploiting my sexuality?
That's not the definition of objectification that sex-positive feminists are using.
Well, I understand that's not their definition, but I'm trying to look at it from a rational point of view. I'm wondering if that objectification is similar to a woman's type of objectification, where she feels if a man is not taking her feelings into account, as you said, disrespecting her, that he is objectifying her. So I'm showing you the guy's point of view. How is that not similar to a woman dressing provocatively and not taking a man's feelings, a man's biology, a man's libido into account? How is that not also objectification?
I don't see how a woman could dress sexy and then not, anticipate that men are going to give her attention. I think women anticipate that all the time. It's the way they respond to certain kinds of attention that will determine whether or not she's objectifying.
No, but we're not talking about her experience. We're talking about the guy's experience now.
No, I just got done saying whether or not she objectifies anyone who gives her attention depends on how she responds to that attention.
So the fact that she is already taking advantage of social norms and dressing provocatively, that's not objectifying a guy already. For example, if I was to go to, let me think, how would I objectify a woman if I really wanted to, I'm trying to think of a similar example. If I were to go to, let's say I was dating 3 girls, and I told all 3 girls I love them to get them emotionally invested into me, and then I could get dinners, favors, perks, maybe my rent paid, etc. So I could get things from these women. Aren't I so in a sense that I'm objectifying them, I'm just using them as, human ATMs. So, see, I'm taking advantage of them. Could I just say, well, they're adults, sorry, they should have just, buyer beware. Shouldn't have believed me.
That's not the definition of objectification that we're using. I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear before. The
Well, it
definition
seems
of
like what you
objectification
told me was that objectification depends on if you're not taking my feelings into account and you're disrespecting me. Those are the two criteria that you told me.
It's disregarding somebody's ability to have feelings, which lowers that person to object status,
right,
to where they might as well not be a person.
Right. So if I'm taking advantage of those women, aren't I? I'm objectifying them. I'm saying, well, I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm telling all three girls this. I'm objectifying them, not taking their feelings into account.
No, but if you're telling them that you love them, that implies that you know they can love you back.
That implies,
which is acknowledging that they
how is that? How would I be acknowledging them? I'm just using them to get stuff out of them. I tell them I love them just so I can get them emotionally invested in me. I'm not acknowledging they have feelings.
Exactly. You're recognizing that they can become emotionally invested in you.
Right, but aren't I using them as objects? I'm not looking at them as people, as this girl with feelings. I'm just saying, hey, I'm taking advantage of her. She's an object. She's an ATM machine.
But that's a dick move. But it's not objectification the way that sex-positive feminists are defining objectification. Because in that situation, the man is recognizing that those women have the capacity, the ability to love him.
So just the fact that okay, let's go back to the previous example then of a guy grabbing a girl's ass. Let's say he recognizes and acknowledges she can have feelings. Maybe she could become my girlfriend one day. Isn't that acknowledging that she's a human? How is that still objectifying? Even though he's giving her unwanted attention, how is he objectifying her? He's just giving her unwanted. He's just not following her wishes. But that doesn't mean he still doesn't view her as a person. How does it automatically imply that?
If he's disregarding the fact that she can have an opinion on what he just did, then that's objectification. But if he responds saying, I don't care if that offended you, that's not, objectification, because he's recognizing that she can be offended.
So it seems like such a legalistic semantic definition that if just to say, well, the fact that I acknowledge I don't care means you're no longer an object, it seems silly. It seems absurd.
No. It's not.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. You're lagging a little bit. Time out. You're lagging. It's the overseas connection. Oh, you're gonna have to wear your foil hat and stick your hand in the air. You're gonna have to stick your hand in the air and get better reception. It's lagging out. Sorry, you're not coming through. We lost all that because you lagged out. We lost all that. You lagged out. Sorry, we lost that last part because you lagged out. The connection, it must be every now and then it goes a little sour, but it's good right now. It's good right now. We have a bad connection. How's your internet speed?
Seems fine.
We're right at the good part.
At the moment.
You're in and out. You're coming in and out. It says your bandwidth is low. It says Susie's network bandwidth is low. We're at the good part.
Let me refresh.
Yeah, try that. Oh, right there. All right. 1 second. We're right at the good part, and it lags out. All right, we're back. Technical difficulties took us out right at the exciting part. So we're talking about objectifying women versus objectifying men. I try to give you an example to see what the definition was, and I'm still not clear on the definition of objectifying because it still seems to depend on how the girl feels, whether she feels that the guy's taking her feelings into account, and also whether she is being disrespected. Those are the criteria that you told me so far.
The criteria is actually whether or not the person who is, approaching the other person, despite gender or sex, it depends on whether or not they are recognizing that person's ability to even have feelings.
Well, but that seems to negate the whole concept of objectivity. Let's say I tell you, hey, nice ass, and you tell me, hey, that's not appropriate. I acknowledge your feelings, but I just keep going. Hey, I want to fuck you. Nice tits. I mean, I still am acknowledging your feelings, but you know what I'm saying? How is that objectifying if I still acknowledge your feelings, but I just continue anyway?
Because you're acting in a manner as if we hadn't said anything.
Yeah, but
Or
what if I really do believe you have feelings, and I acknowledge you have feelings? Let's say I want to make you my girlfriend, but I'm still being forward, telling you nice ass, I want to fuck you, and you're uncomfortable, even though I'm still in my head think this is a girl, she has feelings, I want to date her, etc. How is that not hitting the objectification criteria?
because you're still acknowledging that I have the ability to have an opinion on the
Yeah, but
situation.
it's almost internal. Nothing has changed other than just I've mentally assented and said that you have feelings and views, but my behavior is still the same in both cases.
Let me see if I can find a better way to explain it. If it's more like ignoring the person, ignoring their response.
So if I ignore your response, I'm objectifying you.
Yeah, if you're ignoring my response and you're not even acknowledging that I have the ability to have an opinion on the situation.
You have the ability to have an opinion. So if I acknowledge you have the ability to have an opinion, and I don't ignore you, it just doesn't seem like a very clear definition of objectifying.
But it's not supposed to be as strict as you're making it. You know,
but I think that's the problem. You've said it yourself. It's not as strict as we made it. So it seems like an arbitrary definition that kind of depends on the person applying it.
Well, at first, the way you were kind of interpreting it was you were interpreting it too broadly, and now you're interpreting it a little bit too strictly. No one's saying that there is no gray area.
But that's my point. How can you make a policy or say that anybody is being objectified if we have no standard to judge it against?
But the standard, you know, there's a standard. It's just not.
You can't even explain the standard to me. I'm trying to clarify what the standard is, and then I'm trying to bring cases up that either expose the standard as faulty or just we're taking advantage of the standard. But we can't even establish a standard, and you haven't even given me a clear definition. That's what I'm trying to establish. What is this? What does it mean to objectify?
What it means to objectify a person is to basically to remove their ability to even have, you know, human emotions.
But I can't remove your ability to have emotions.
It's not actually physically removing, like going into their brain and snatching up the opinion section of their brain. It's you behaving as if you don't believe they even.
Yeah, but again, how can you tell what I'm internally thinking, whether I think you have feelings or not? How do you know that?
It's not a matter of knowing. It's a matter of just the way the person's treating you.
So again, we have two different ways of treating you. Now we're talking about treatment as the criteria. So if I treat you in an objectifying manner, what does it mean to treat you in an objectifying manner?
It's to disregard the fact that I can have an opinion on anything.
Yeah, but that's internally. I'm saying, how do I treat you? You just said it was a matter of treating you. How do I treat you in a way that objectifies you? We can't establish this internal matter because I just said, if I think that, you know, you have feelings, and I think you're a person who can express your feelings, and how can I objectify you versus if I don't think you have feelings, but I'm doing the exact same outward behavior. In both cases, I'm saying, nice ass, I want to fuck you, and I'm disregarding what you're saying to me. But in one case, I am disregarding your feelings, and in the other case, I am acknowledging internally, this is a girl, I want her to be my girlfriend. In this case, I'm just saying, I just want to fuck her, she's an object.
Okay, it's the treatment where they might as well not have an opinion because you're not acknowledging it, you're not responding to it.
So I have to acknowledge the opinion is what you're saying.
Yeah, you basically have to acknowledge the fact that
do I have to obey it? So let's say I'm saying nice ass, and you say, hey, that's not appropriate, and I say, well, too bad you're showing your ass, and then I keep going.
You're not objectifying me at that point. You're just being a dick.
I'm not objectifying you. So it just seems kind of weird because don't you understand how silly this definition seems? Because all it depends upon is just me saying I don't care what you think versus the other case where I don't acknowledge you, I just ignore it.
Exactly.
But it just seems such a silly line because all I have to do to legally get around it, or at least in your mind get around it, is just to say I don't care what you say. I mean, I just have to acknowledge it. I just have to say I don't care what you're saying. I mean, that seems such like a silly criteria for objectification in that case.
Yeah, but that's exactly where it needs to be because then any guy who can say nice ass is automatically a sexist pig, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, but by the same token, by creating such a semantical definition, you've made it meaningless. You've diluted the whole point of.
I don't think it's meaningless though, because if you're talking to a person acknowledging that they have an opinion, you're acknowledging that they're human.
Right. But I don't know how you could sell this to a guy and say, well, if you said this to a girl, but the only difference was that you said, I don't care what you say. As long as you said that phrase, acknowledge her opinion, even though you don't agree with it, you're not objectifying her. I doubt you would get a guy to go, oh, that's clearly objectification. Now I can see it. Now I see the light. I mean, I just don't see it happening.
I think the issue here is there's a difference between objectification and just being outright disrespectful. Like, you can be sexist towards a woman and still recognize that she's a human being. You might just think of her as a lesser human being.
Right, but that kind of, I see what you're saying, but that kind of nullifies the whole point of this concept of objectification. If all I have to do is just acknowledge your opinion but just disregard it, it seems like objectification goes out the window.
Not exactly, because you're still responding to what I've had to say.
I got that. I understand that, but I'm saying, do you understand what I'm saying when I say it makes the concept of objectification a non-issue? As long as I just have to just disagree with you or disregard your opinion, and I let you know that, I have a dialogue with you, it just seems like there's no such thing as objectification now.
All right. Well, then here's the solution to this conundrum. You have the freedom to disregard somebody's feelings, and we have the freedom to say you're a dickbag.
Okay.
And everyone's still being, still expressing their own human, very human.
I agree with that, because at least you're expressing your feelings towards me, but now you're not trying to legislate some arbitrary feeling or use the law against me based on how you feel about things, where the standard is not even established. I agree with what you said. If I say something where I say, hey, nice tits, and you don't like it, you're allowed to say, hey, you're a dickbag.
Yeah,
I think people should be free to express themselves in that regard.
Yeah, but there's a line between free speech and harassment. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept that you can't just yell fire in a crowded building and that's going to be protected free speech.
Right.
The same concept applies here. If you're harassing somebody, if you won't leave them the hell alone, you're basically treating them as if they're not going to have a problem with it because they don't have the ability to have a problem with it. Then that's harassment.
Right, but how? Okay, so we see the women's side of harassment, whereas they're getting attention they don't want, and they tell a man, hey, I don't want any more of your attention. Please go away. Please don't talk to me, etc. On the flip side of that, is it harassment if a woman, again, dresses a certain way provocatively, provokes a man, takes advantage of his libido, exploits his sexuality? Isn't that harassment?
No, absolutely not. It's not the same thing because you choose how you react to that.
But how is that not biological in nature? What do you mean I choose how I react? If I chose it, why would there even be the issue of showing more skin or wearing tighter clothing if it was just a choice issue? Why wouldn't you just wear a big poofy outfit?
You choose how you respond to the feelings you have. You choose how you respond to being aroused.
Yeah, but it seems like that's a total misunderstanding of how biology works. For instance, if you were starving and I put a plate of spaghetti in front of your nose, your mouth would naturally salivate just by smelling food. That's a biological response. I don't think you have a choice and say, oh, I don't feel hungry, or my appetite isn't suddenly aroused by smelling the spaghetti. I don't think that you could say that's just a choice. It seems like a matter of biology.
Okay, but here's the difference. I don't think you can equate hunger with sexual urges, because you don't need to have sex to live. You need to eat.
Well, if nobody had sex, we'd all die, so I don't think that's true.
Yeah, but in terms of individuals, if one individual person doesn't get laid and get someone pregnant...
Well, then that individual will die out. That line of that family will die out.
Yeah, humans aren't going to die out.
Well, humans as a whole, but again, if we just take individuals and extrapolate, that segment will die out, whichever segment that doesn't get their needs met. Just like we can individually say most people have food to eat, but those people who don't have food to eat will die out. They will die without food. They'll starve, like they do in Africa, or they do in other places where they don't have access to food all the time.
Yeah, but the difference is there's a level of natural selection here.
Natural selection?
When you have something, eating food doesn't involve, consent for it to be ethical. You see what I mean?
Eating food doesn't have to involve consent for it to be ethical.
You don't have to get consent from the food before you eat it.
Well, that's a separate issue. We're talking about how you biologically respond to food, not whether you have the permission to eat the food. Like, for instance, eating would involve consent. If I broke into your house, it's your food. I don't have permission to eat it. That's a legal issue where I don't have consent. So it actually does involve consent. If I'm trying to take your food that you bought, you purchased, it belongs to you. Versus it was just my food and I paid for it, that is a legal issue. That does require consent as well.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about consent. We're talking about how you respond to food biologically. If you smell food and you're starving, if you haven't eaten for 3 days and I put a plate of food in front of you, it's going to activate your salivary glands. You're going to start salivating. That's not a choice. That's biology. Just like if a man sees a woman naked presenting herself, that's biology for that man to be turned on, be aroused. Men are visual in that regard. That's their male libido. That's a natural process. That's not something you have a choice over. Just like when guys are in school and they see a pretty girl and they get a boner, it's not like they want to get a boner in class. They're not trying to get a boner and embarrass themselves in class. This is one of the common embarrassments for guys, is to get boners in class. So if they had a choice, wouldn't they choose to not have a boner in class?
But
Okay,
I'm not saying that the actual act of being aroused is a choice. That's not what I'm saying. If you had listened to what I was saying,
right? But I'm saying I'm not disputing what you said. But I'm sorry, I'm not disputing the fact that being aroused is not a choice. But I'm disputing the fact that the person is causing the arousal is an issue of harassment, because women don't have to dress provocatively.
We don't have to, but it's our choice.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's irresponsible.
Women don't have to walk around without their shirts on at the beach.
Right, but women don't have the same biological response.
Well, is a man walking around and I think he's hot, is he harassing me if I think he's hot?
Well, no, because it's not taking advantage of female biology. That's not how women react sexually. Women aren't visual in nature.
Really? So women can't be aroused.
If women were visual in nature, porn consumption would be equal among men and women. But it is not. It is 99% men downloading these videos and looking at porn and jerking off to porn at night, not women. Women can get sex anytime they want, so it's not even a visual thing. Women,
really?
Yes.
Women
If you had a fat chick and you put a sign outside her door that said free sex, and you had a regular looking guy and you put a sign outside his door that said free sex, there would be a line around the block for the fat chick, and there would be nobody at the door of the average guy when it said free sex. That just shows you right there the difference between male libido and female libido. Women respond to their emotional investment in a person, whereas men respond visually to whether they want to fuck this girl or not, whether they think she's hot or not. It's two different biological responses. So to say that men without their shirts off is comparable to women without their shirts off is ridiculous. We already acknowledge this in society. Yes, it is, because I have my shirt off right now. It's hot, but you haven't said, "Oh my gosh, your shirt's off." Whereas if you had your shirt off, it'd be a different story. I'd have a boner right now. I'd be sexually aroused.
Why? Really? Because I can't be thinking that this is hot, that you have your shirt off. I can't.
Well, you can, but look, in general, you can.
You're disregarding cultural factors. You're disregarding
It's not a cultural factor.
Yes, it is.
Around the world, women. If that was true, if your assumption was true that it wasn't a cultural factor and women just weren't programmed, then in Japan, China, and other areas, we would see an equal amount of porn consumption, which we don't.
But I think there is a cultural factor to that, and I'm not saying
cultural factor. It's a biological factor.
If you give me a chance.
Go ahead, explain it to me.
There is, across multiple cultures, with the exception of very few, there is a stigma against women who express sexuality.
Right.
There's a stigma against, there's this negative attitude towards women who are open about their sexual arousal.
Okay.
I'm not one of those women. I say fuck that.
Right.
So
I agree with you. In certain cultures,
women are very discouraged from behaving.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. There are cultures that are more open to women expressing their sexual interests versus other cultures where they're closed off. For instance, Asian cultures versus, like the French culture. Those two, French culture is obviously more open to sexual initiation or women expressing sexual feelings versus in Asian cultures where it's more of a shameful thing to do that. Okay, that's a cultural issue. But that still doesn't do anything for the biological issue. For instance, there's Asian men who are in the same restrictions, whereas sex is more of it's almost more of a shameful thing to be as open as, say, in a European country where, they just have nude beaches and sex is very out there. So those two men in those different cultures still, biologically speaking, have the same arousal mechanism, still respond to naked women the same, regardless of whether they feel ashamed in this culture or whether they feel not ashamed in this culture over here. That's irrelevant to their natural biological reaction to seeing a woman naked. The culture is irrelevant in that regard.
Maybe so, but even
it's
then,
not maybe so. That's just male biology. We have enough men around the world to know this.
Okay, well, maybe you can provide me with some sources for that. That would be great.
You can come to our academy. We have men around the world who will tell you the exact same thing, regardless of culture. We have a worldwide audience of men. They will tell you they get aroused just the same It's an interesting thing. Nobody talks about culture. When somebody brings up a nude woman or a porn film, nobody says, oh, what culture are you from? You're not going to respond to this the same way we do in our culture. It's just an understood thing among men, regardless of the culture. They say, oh, is this girl hot? Oh, yeah, I'd like to bang her. It's a similar response around the world. Doesn't that strike you as strange? If every man doesn't bring up culture and yet they can all identify with wanting to fuck a hot chick that they see, and they instantly can identify with another guy across the world?
Okay, but the problem with that is it's anecdotal.
Well, we have a lot of anecdotes then.
I know, but that's not...
An accumulation of anecdotal evidence is definitely proof.
Yeah, but that would have to be documented.
We could start documenting that right now. I'm sure we'd have no problem proving this theory.
That all right, if you can find some peer-reviewed sources, that would be great.
I'm a source. Every man at our academy is a source. Every man we talk to continually is a source.
Peer-reviewed.
Peer-reviewed? Who else? Everybody reviews our work. What are you talking about?
Scholastically peer-reviewed.
I don't know if you realize this, but we're an educational center. We're a source of learning. We're a source of knowledge. We are experts in our field.
And who are the agencies that have accredited you?
We're pioneers in our field. Nobody does what we do. Nobody teaches what we teach. The pickup artist community doesn't teach it. Men's rights activists don't teach it. Sociologists don't teach it. Nobody teaches what we teach.
I can assure you that there are classes where the same issues you discuss on your website are being discussed in academia.
I'm sure there are classes, but they don't have expert opinions like we do at our academy. The reason why our academy's work is so stellar is because we invite our critics. We challenge our critics to find holes in our work. This is why we even hold debates with them.
Do all the time.
That's peer review in action.
Okay, so if you're an academically accredited institution.
This is a common fallacy among women. It's like women waving their diploma and saying, I'm smart. It's a common fallacy.
So this is a common fallacy among women?
Yes, among women.
Your bias is coming out very strongly right now, and I don't appreciate it.
It's called observation. It's called observation. Well, neither do I appreciate you. Neither do I appreciate you casting aspersions on our academy, not even understanding what we teach here, or questioning my expertise. I mean, I'm offended by it, but because I'm an adult, I'm still able to speak to you and deal with you and rationalize with you and debate against you and discuss with you. I can still do these things even while being offended, whereas you as a woman, your offense takes precedent over your rational brain operating.
How am I not being rational?
You just told me, oh, I'm so offended. Why does it matter? I mean, I've been offended by some of your ideas, but I'm adult enough and objective enough to just disregard the offense and keep going on with either the argument or the presentation of my idea to rationalize with you. That's what adults do. They disregard the emotional element and go with what is objective. They're trying to establish a standard, just like I'm trying to establish a standard with you for what is objective, what is objectifying a person, and we can't even establish that standard because, again, it's an emotional standard. You haven't.
No, let me finish. We did establish that standard, first of all.
Well, it's such an arbitrary standard.
Second of all, in regard to what is adult behavior, I don't think it's very adult to not tell somebody when you disagree with them. I don't think it's
not tell somebody when you disagree with them.
I don't think it's mature or more,
There's a difference between disagreeing and shaming. What you're trying to do is what a mom tries to do emotionally, is shame her child. I'm offended. I can't believe you said that. What if I just said my argument was, I'm offended by you. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said those things. That's offensive to me. What a childish argument.
You cut me off before I could explain why I was offended.
Yeah, but the fact that you're offended and telling me you're offended is part of your argument. Why don't you just come out and straight out and tell me why you're offended or why you disagree? Isn't it more important to state your disagreement versus the fact that you're offended?
You didn't let me get to my disagreement.
Yeah, but why as an adult, why would you tell me you're offended? Well, I haven't told you I'm offended at the number of things you said.
Why not? Why haven't you?
Because I'm not a child like you. Why would I do that? Why would I do that?
I think it's silly to define expressing offense as childish.
It is childish, especially when we're trying to have a rational discussion and get to objective facts. Emotion has no business being in here.
You weren't being objective the minute you said that women do this and women do that.
That's called an observation. That's an objective observation.
Okay, so every woman in the world does what I just did.
No, I'm making a generalization. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. We're not talking about the exception to the rule.
How can you prove that the vast majority
of
women...
If we couldn't make generalizations, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation because we have to generally agree on the meanings of words. That's called generalizing. If we couldn't generalize, we couldn't make legal policies that affect huge societies. That's called generalizing.
how do you have the authority to define what a generalization is?
Well, if you don't have the authority and I don't have the authority, our words would mean nothing. They would be arbitrary. I could say something and it would mean banana to you. That would mean that we have no generalizations at all, and all our languages was just individual code, and we could never communicate.
Right. So,
but obviously we're communicating, so obviously we're agreeing that there already are generalizations, so we agree generalizations are valid as long as they have an objective, reasonable standard. That's what I'm explaining right now.
Where is your proof that the generalization you made is valid?
We have plenty of proof. Like I told you, we're a worldwide academy. We hear from men all the time from around the world, from different cultures. Accredited, again, this is an authority fallacy. This is like a woman waving her diploma around and saying, I'm smart, look at my diploma.
Why can't it be a person waving their... No, a diploma is exactly...
No, because women do this. They're saying, accredited, I'm accredited, look at, here's my diploma.
Men can't do that?
A smart man would never do that. A smart man would never wave a diploma. That is such a childish chick move. Who would do that?
So only women do that.
No, men do that too, but by and large, again, the generalization, women do that. Women make the mistake of making these authority fallacies.
You're calling most of women stupid.
Yes.
That's what you're implying.
I'm not implying it. I'm directly stating it.
You absolutely just applied it because you said...
I'm not implying it. I'm directly stating it. Listen. I'm not implying it. I'm directly stating it. No, I'm not implying it. There's a difference. You don't even understand what I'm telling you. I'm not implying you're stupid. I'm stating you're stupid. We have observations and facts that prove that you're stupid.
No, you implied that most women are stupid.
I'm not implying that. I'm telling you directly that fact. Women are stupid. Most women are stupid. I'm telling you. I'm not implying it. Implying it would be saying. Implying it would say. Implying it would say that.
Biased opinion.
Sexist and biased by whose standard? We haven't even established a standard on that yet.
Because how can you prove that most women are stupid? How do you define stupid?
Well, we talk to a lot of women, like you, who are unable to rationally and objectively state their views. And then when we encounter these people en masse, then we know that these people are stupid en masse. This is what you have proven. This is what we have observed.
Okay.
I mean, you exhibit all the classic symptoms of a stupid person. Emotional, her standard is her feelings. I'm offended. You said, I'm offended, therefore that's my argument. I'm offended. Unable to present a rational case for her views. You can't even define what it's like to be objectified. And eventually we got to your definition of objectification. Even your definition was absurd.
I don't care if you think it's absurd. You asked about my philosophy.
We'll find out if everybody thinks it's absurd or just me, because again, we're inviting public scrutiny of our work, of what we do here. This is how we're so successful.
You, but apparently that's what you were baiting me for.
Baiting you for what?
Baiting me for criticism of your. This turned very antagonistic very quickly. As soon as
we just told you we don't have softball interviews. We don't have soft. We ask questions. We ask questions to get. We ask questions to get to the heart of the matter. We want to get to the truth. We don't want to just ask you questions so that you could present all your views. I told you this before the interview even started, that we would ask you questions about your views to get a full picture of your views, not just to ambush you and have a debate with you. Again, if we have a debate, we usually include the moderator. We announce the debate beforehand. This is an interview. This is why it's one-on-one. When we have debates, we have an audience. We don't have an audience here. It's just you and me. This is an interview.
Okay. Here's where it stopped being an interview and it started being a discussion about bias. Because if you came to me and you were presenting this as this is going to be an unbiased interview, you presented bias when you basically...
Well, every interviewer has a bias.
You can't even let me finish. Look here. If you
you're lying about me. You're lying about me and saying you're lying about me and saying something about bias, and I'm just correcting you that every interviewer has a bias. It's the interviewer's job.
You expressed your
bias.
Right,
after you called me out and made me state my views. If you want me to state my views, I'm going to answer your question. Yeah, you said, yes, you asked me a question. You said, you think you're implying that women are stupid? And I'm saying I'll directly tell you women are stupid. That's my view. That's my observation. That's my observation.
Look, here's the point.
Every interviewer has a bias.
Here's the point. If you can't even tell me why your institution is reliable, if you can't even tell me
we're reliable because we get results. We're experts at what we do. We invite public scrutiny, which is the heart of peer review. The heart of peer review is public scrutiny. We have the ultimate peer review, which is the world, the public at large. This is why we have these discussions and debates.
Oh, the ultimate peer review. You mean the court of public opinion, which is actually way different from peer review.
Oh, so you're saying the public's not smart enough to discern whether you're speaking the truth or not, whether what you're saying is valid or not. The public's just not bright enough to do that.
In many instances, the public is very stupid because there are a lot of uneducated people in the world.
So you're saying the majority of people that are listening to this are just going to be stupid people? They
might very well be, depending on who the audience is.
Well, I don't understand how that's not even less offensive than saying women are stupid. I mean, you are so absurd in your reasoning capacity. It's so childlike. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I didn't make any assumptions just now on who the audience was. I said they.
What do you mean? You just said the majority of you didn't make an assumption. You said the majority of people are going to be stupid.
No, I didn't say they would be.
Oh, they wouldn't be.
They probably are.
Probably. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't. Let me correct you. The majority of people will probably be stupid, not definitively be stupid.
Exactly.
So you don't have to take accountability for your statements. That's just like a woman. You don't want to be accountable for your statements.
You haven't even asked me what my definition of stupid is.
Go ahead. Tell us what your definition of stupid is.
My definition of stupid is just purely IQ. It's not an issue of intelligence.
Purely IQ? What?
Look, the point is...
Are you silly enough to think an IQ test is valid?
It isn't. It is for measuring cultural knowledge.
What? You're talking about IQ versus cultural knowledge is two different things.
No, absolutely, because if you take an IQ test that was...
Yeah, but only dumb people believe the IQ test.
No.
Only uneducated people believe an IQ test, just like only uneducated people believe in things like a polygraph, a machine for telling, that has the ability to discern whether you're lying or not. This is pseudoscience. This is junk science. Yeah, that's called junk science.
Okay, look.
I don't know what you're laughing at. It's junk science. What do you want me to tell you? Is the fact that humorous?
You have proof that it's junk science?
Yeah, there's plenty of proof. You should research it. You'd learn something. You
would
learn something.
I will give you time to provide me with sources that prove that polygraphs are junk science.
I like how your version of sources, they have to wear a white lab coat, as if you're too dumb to even discern on your own or observe on your own or rationalize on your own. You can't be a valid source.
Okay, look,
that's what a dumb person would say. They would limit themselves. They would say, I'm too dumb to understand this problem rationally, therefore I need to go to some higher authority, somebody wearing a white lab coat that calls themselves a scientist, and their opinion is valid, my opinion isn't valid. That is something a dumb person would say.
Okay, no, because look, if there's not a standard for who is an expert and who is just a charlatan...
You really shouldn't be lecturing on standards, because your own standards are silly. You have to know what a standard is in order to care about a standard or worry about the other person's standard. I mean, we just went over your standard for what is considered objectifying. It's ridiculous, it's childish, it's silly.
It's not something you can prove, it's a theory.
Right, and we proved it's childish. It's silly.
I never said it was fact.
Okay, so it's your arbitrary, silly theory. So now that we have your arbitrary, silly theory, we have your view of what a standard is like. Now that we know that your standard is so waffling in nature, so arbitrary, so emotion-based, you are no longer qualified, you are no longer credible in determining what constitutes a valid standard, because you don't even have valid standards yourself. How could you be, if you don't have the ability to create a valid standard, how can you judge what is a valid standard? How do you even know that?
I do have the ability to create a valid standard. Your definition of a valid standard is flawed.
No, you've demonstrated you don't know what a valid standard is. Your definition, you even said your own definition is not factual in nature. So it has no standard, has no absolute standard. It's just your opinion. Yeah, it's a concept, just like Smurfs, just like dragons, just like leprechauns.
Gravity is a theory.
So if I make leprechauns my standard, if I have an imaginary standard, and I hold that as my standard, now suddenly I'm qualified to talk about objective scientific standards?
You don't understand what a theory is then. And look.
Tell me what a theory is.
No, what you need to do is define a standard.
You don't even know what a standard is.
Do you? I'm asking you to define standard.
I'm an adult. Of course I know what a standard is. You were a child. Your standard is waffling.
Being an adult automatically makes you...
No, I am mature. That is what makes me an adult. As a mature person who understands accountability and standards, that is what makes me an adult. That is what defines an adult. A child has waffling standards, just like you have emotional standards. That is what makes you not an adult.
So human emotions, so adults don't have emotions. Really?
Whoever implied that adults don't have emotions?
You did.
How?
By saying that adults
By saying that your silly emotional standard was ridiculous, that means suddenly that adults don't have emotions? The fact that you came to that conclusion, that demonstrates your silly reasoning capacity, your uneducated reasoning capacity.
Not an emotional standard. standard.
What isn't?
Whatever you were referring to as an emotional standard, the standard by which we define what objectification is.
You just said, it depends on the context, how she feels about it, how she takes it.
No, I defined it. I didn't say it
and it was a
no.
silly definition.
No.
All
Okay,
you said was, the difference was, you said, as long as I acknowledge, let's say, I say nice ass, and you, in one case, I don't acknowledge anything you say, and I just keep going, even though you tell me, hey, I don't appreciate that. That's objectification. Your version over here is that I do the same exact behavior, the only difference being I say, I don't care what you think. And I keep going with the exact same behavior, but I only make that statement. That is the most childishly ridiculous standard I've ever heard of in my life.
Now you're presenting your feelings, and
no,
now
I'm observing how silly your standard is.
Observation, because it's
of course it's an observation. I'm observing your criteria, and the only difference is I just have to make a verbal declaration that absolves me of accountability for my behavior. Just that simple little declaration. I don't care what you say.
It doesn't absolve anyone of accountability. In fact, it's supposed to do the opposite. It is supposed to establish accountability.
So in one side where I just say I don't care what you think, I'm objectifying you, and the other side where I don't say that verbally, suddenly I am objectifying you. That's what you said. That's the only difference in your two standards.
You can keep saying that's
What's the difference? Tell me the difference then.
That's your interpretation.
No, actually, it's on our recording. It's on our recording, so it's not my interpretation. I'm going by your exact standard.
If you didn't,
clarify for me then. Clarify for me right now. What is your standard for clarify for me right now what your standard is. Clarify for me right now what your standard is.
If you didn't take the time,
clarify for me right now what your standard for objectification is. No, you didn't. I said what you told me. I repeated back what you told me. And you said that's not the standard now.
I've already defined it.
You have not.
I have it on recording, and I've already defined it.
You just said that wasn't it. I repeated back to you what you just told me, and you said, no, that's not it. So I'm saying, define it for me then.
All right. The redefinition is the inability of someone. I guess not the inability to. Let me see how I phrase this, because the wording is important. It is the failure to acknowledge or to recognize a person's ability to have feelings.
Right, and I told you before that is an internal standard. There's no way you could ever know that other than me just arbitrarily saying, hey, I don't care what you say, versus just not saying anything. How are you going to subtly mind read whether the other person who didn't say anything actually cares about your feelings or not, or thinks you have feelings or not, or thinks you have the ability to feel or not? How would you even know that? It's such a silly standard.
You're not understanding the definition or your own personal biases.
No, I'm asking you to clarify.
No. I just did clarify.
And I gave you two examples. I gave you two examples that illustrate the weakness. And I gave you two examples that illustrate the weakness, the silliness of your standard. That illustrate the silliness of your standard.
And if you stop interrupting, and I think...
You don't think. That's the problem.
And you want to talk about childishness now.
Well, you're being very childish. You're repeating something.
What am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to be childish. Again, you proved yourself. My behavior determines your behavior. If my behavior determines your behavior, you're a child. If my behavior determines your behavior, you're a child. If my behavior determines your behavior, you're a child.
An adult waits
If
for the
my behavior determines your behavior, you're a child.
An adult waits for the other person.
Well, then you've just admitted you're a child.
No, because I'm not the one who started the interrupting.
Okay.
So now that the childishness has been introduced by you...
It's okay now. It's all free for all. Because my behavior determines your behavior. Again, you're a child, just like I told you. If I flash a shiny object on a screen, you're just going to dance around like a cat because you're a child, versus an adult who has their own standards, and lives by those standards.
All right. The bottom line is, I'm not going to continue to talk to somebody who obviously perceives me as someone who is inferior to them because of something I do.
Well, you've demonstrated. This is an observation.
No.
You have an inferior reasoning capacity. That is called an observation.
You just interrupted me again. Wow. Okay. Let me finish my thought.
You have no problems interrupting me, so I think we're fine.
Just now. You just interrupted me. I interrupted you in return.
I apologize for interrupting you. Continue.
Sure you do. The bottom line is, and if you let me finish my thought, and if I could get a word in edgewise, would you allow me that? Would you be so gracious?
Well, if you're going to be a condescending cunt, what do you expect?
What have you been doing this entire interview?
Well, I've been trying to rationally present my view to you. That's why I haven't. That's why you notice I haven't said, "Oh, you're offending me by your tone, by condescending to me, by leveling your childish emotional responses to my arguments." You're laughing. You're being insulting with your laughing and trying to dismiss my arguments, dismiss my reasonable, objective viewpoint. I could easily be offended by that and tell you that I'm offended by that. But I'm an adult unlike you. I don't cry about it. I don't have to giggle and dismiss it. I mean, I could just tell you you're a silly cunt and disregard you. I can make shadow puppets. I could say you're barking. Arr, arr, you're barking. Arr. See, that's what I could do if I really wanted to mimic your behavior. You want to mimic my behavior. You want to mimic my behavior. I can mimic your behavior. Do you like it when I mimic your behavior? You know how you disregard me? I think you're objectifying me. You're not acknowledging my argument. You're objectifying me. I feel objectified now. No, you're talking over me. You're not acknowledging me. You're objectifying me. You're guilty of violating your own standard.
You don't understand the definition. You don't.
Maybe it's because you're too dumb to give a valid definition. Maybe that's the problem.
No, your problem is you're allowing your own personal biases to cloud your perception of the definition.
You're too dumb to even make that assessment.
All right, this ridiculous excuse for an interview is over, and I'd love to do some research into how accredited your institution is.
You do. Come on by, and then you could debate us. You could debate us you could post a challenge in the debate center, and we'll have a moderator so nobody gets interrupted, and we'll have an audience, and they can give us real-time reactions, and people will determine whether I'm being a child or whether you're being a child. We'll have objective peer review. Would you like to do that?
That's not objective peer review, though.
That's not objective. How so?
No, you don't understand what peer review is, then.
Well, you don't understand the concept of peer. You just called the world too dumb to determine whether the arguments are valid.
No, I didn't.
You just did. You said probably everybody that's going to watch the video is too dumb to know what they're viewing. They're not going to be able to rationally provide an objective opinion about what they're viewing.
You need to Google the definition of peer review.
You're too dumb to even understand the concept of peer review.
Let me look up the definition of peer review right now.
I just told you. You're too dumb to understand the concept of peer review. You have to be a peer in order to review something. You're not even a peer.
I understand peer
No, you don't. You do not.
Why not?
You do not. Because you don't understand the concept of public scrutiny. Peer review is not some elitist thing.
Peer review is not public scrutiny.
Yes, it is. That is the very definition of peer review. That is the very definition of peer review.
Because you haven't been to college. Because in academia, I'm in college.
You are too dumb to realize that chicks run colleges. Chicks run colleges. You think chicks are smarter than guys? Who invented everything? Guys invented everything. Guys invented everything. Every significant invention was from a male brain, not a female brain, a male brain. So if women are so bright, and they're graduating in more numbers than men, if they're graduating in more numbers than men, they should be brighter than men according to you.
The definition of peer review came from men.
What?
The definition of peer review came from men.
Oh, where's your sources?
Let me show you.
You're looking up something on the internet. You're not even sourcing it. You're just you're making an assumption. You don't even know. You can't even tell me before you even look it up. Was it a committee? Was it a committee? Was it a committee? Do you know if it's a committee or not?
Every time I asked you for sources, you did not provide any either.
I just told you I'm a source. What are you talking about?
You're not a reliable source. You are one
According
person.
to you. Again, you're in no position. Your silly standard, your silly waffling standard is no valid litmus test for what is a standard a source. What's a reliable source or what isn't a reliable source?
What are your qualifications?
What are my qualifications for a source? I talk to people. I talk to people around the world.
No, that's not.
I can do exactly what I say.
That doesn't make you an authority. A documentarian.
No, it definitely does. When I can do something, when I'm actually it does. I know you're too dumb to understand this concept, but if a person is an expert at something, they can do what they say.
Okay, then do this. I challenge you to go to any university professor of any other academic institution that is accredited, unlike probably your institution. And
once again, you are too dumb to understand that just because you have a diploma or a seal, this does not make you intelligent. Only dumb people think that. Only dumb people think that. Only dumb people think that.
I never said
You keep harping on it. You keep harping on accreditation as if it's a valid litmus test.
So what is the standard for who's an expert?
You keep saying that as if it's a valid litmus test.
What is the difference between an expert and
I was an A student. I, of all people, know the educational system is ridiculous. It's absurd. If the educational system would allow you into it and would allow you to graduate, I know it's absurd.
Why?
Because you're too dumb to even make a coherent, objective argument without introducing emotional responses into it. That shows me, that demonstrates to me your level of education. If you were truly educated, you would realize that stating your offense at a point is ridiculous, has no business being in an academic argument.
Yes, it absolutely does.
No, it doesn't. Otherwise, I could just say my argument is, no, you're making me mad. No, you're wrong because you're making me mad. That's my academic argument. That's how dumb you are. That's how dumb you are.
That wasn't my argument.
That is how dumb you are. You think that being indignant is an argument.
That wasn't my argument. You didn't
That it should even be introduced. I'm offended. I'm offended, sir. That has no place in an academic argument. That has no place in an academic argument. It absolutely doesn't. Only a child would think that. Only a child would think that.
Scholars constantly debate what does and does not offend them and whether or not something is offensive.
No. Childish scholars or pseudo-scholars, not real scholars.
Okay, what is a real scholar? Give me some examples of real scholars.
I'm a real scholar. I'm objective. I'm reasonable. I deal with silly people like you all the time. I educate silly people like you. I educate dummies like you. That's my job. My job is to educate dummies like you. That is my job.
So then why didn't you make that clear before luring me into an antagonistic...
What do you mean? I just told you there's no softball questions in our interviews.
You didn't make that clear in your email.
I didn't make that clear? What do you want me to give you a treatise on what not a softball interview is?
You should have made it clear that this is not going to be...
I should have made it clear that your feelings would get hurt. Again, that you're a child. That's what I should have told you. I'm sorry, your feelings are going to be hurt at some point during this interview. Therefore, be prepared. Get your blanket, your bottle.
So your feelings were hurt. You said earlier something I said you were offended.
Yeah, but again, I am an adult. I don't let my feelings dictate my arguments, whether you offend me or not. When you laugh like a silly retard because you're indignant over a point, I don't say, oh my God, I can't believe you're laughing and condescending to me. That offends me. I know, because I'm an adult, that has no business in an academic argument. So I don't mention it. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to my point. But you being a child, being an uneducated person, think that being angry is a valid argument. You're being ridiculous.
Here's the fallacy.
Go ahead. Give me the fallacy.
The fallacy in your logic is that expressing offense or opinion cannot be something that can be academic, which is...
Yeah, it is an academic. That's what I just told you. That's what I just got done telling you.
That is absolutely false, because scholars are constantly debating if something is offensive and why.
Give me a source. Give me a source for your bullshit claim. Give me a source for your bullshit claim.
All right, so let me just go to my university's library database.
Oh, this is going to be hilarious. Can't wait. I can't wait for this source. Do 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 do.
I love how you love to talk about standards of maturity, and this is how you behave.
Well, you're too dumb to even know that there's no source for this. I have to waste my time waiting for it. I have to waste my time waiting for a source that doesn't exist. There's no source. I'll help you out, since you're too dumb to realize there's no source for this. There is no source. You're going to be looking in vain. You're going to be looking in vain for this. There is no source for this. You're too dumb to realize it. You're going to be looking in vain for this so-called source.
All right, well then let's just see about that, because I'm looking right now.
Go ahead.
Give me a second. The page is loading.
Go ahead. Waste both of our time looking for this source that doesn't exist.
If it's a waste of time, why are you still doing it?
I'm waiting for you to prove that you're a dummy. Go ahead. Waste our time looking for this source that doesn't exist.
And I'm just sitting here and letting you talk and letting everyone...
We're waiting for you to come up with this imaginary source. We're waiting for you to come up with this imaginary source. Is this from leprechauns? Is this from peer-reviewed leprechauns? And letting you prove that you could rap. And letting you prove. We should put that to a rap. And letting you prove. And letting you prove. Are you OCD? And letting you prove. And letting you prove. Well, you're a dumb cunt. If I'm a sexist pig, if I'm a sexist pig in your observation, you're a dumb cunt in my observation.
Yeah, that's a subjective standard.
Right, just like your standard is subjective about sexist pigs.
Exactly.
Big deals. They're irrelevant. So the fact that you want to call me a sexist pig is just as irrelevant as me wanting to call you a dumb cunt. They're irrelevant.
So now standards of actual societal impacts are irrelevant to society.
What?
That's what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. You don't even know what you're saying.
Yes, I do.
No, please explain your silly statement. Please explain your absurd statement.
I'm about to.
Go ahead.
you just implied that people's opinions are irrelevant.
I would actually say that you implied that when you said initially that the YouTube audience doesn't matter, or whoever views this doesn't matter. They're too dumb to know that. You, of all people, said that.
No.
Oh, you didn't.
I said the demographic that subscribes to your...
No, you didn't. You didn't say that at all. And we got it recorded, so we know you didn't say that.
No, I said...
No, I'm pretty sure it's not there. You can say it right now. I'd like you to put that lie out there so when people actually listen to this interview, they will know that that's not there. Go ahead, say it. Go ahead. Tell your lie.
If it wasn't clear before...
Well, it wasn't clear because you didn't say it.
If it wasn't clear before, I thought I made it clear. But if it
No, you didn't because you didn't say that.
Then let me finish my thought. If it wasn't clear before, I'm sorry. I guess it wasn't clear before for you.
I guess your lie wasn't clear, and the other people who you implied were too dumb or directly stated were too dumb to realize this will know it when they hear it. So when they go back and listen to your direct words, they'll know whether you're telling the truth or not.
That's not what I'm clarifying.
Oh, what are you clarifying?
What I'm clarifying is, if it wasn't clear before, when I was talking about audience, I was talking about your audience, the people who subscribe.
Okay. So now you're changing your view. Well, before you said all people listening to this or whoever listens to this, now suddenly it's our audience. It's the implication. Everybody's supposed to be...
may or may not be.
No, you said probably.
May or may not be.
And probably. So is it may or may not be or probably? We know your standard is so shitty that you can't keep your lie straight. Because you said probably.
That's still a qualified statement.
Now it's a qualified statement? I don't even think...
I've qualified my statement.
You are so irresponsible. You are so irresponsible with your communication. You can't even make a straight, objective statement. That's how childish you are. You can't maintain an objective standard. Only children do that.
All right, I'm going to keep looking for that source.
I can't wait to hear from this imaginary source. This is going to be hilarious.
The keywords in the search that we're using, I'm using University of Incarnate Words, JE and LE Maybe Library Primo Search, which is a collection of databases, academic databases of actual peer-reviewed sources.
Oh, we can't wait for this imaginary leprechaun source. This is going to be hilarious.
And the keywords we're using in this search are maturity and emotion.
Go ahead and throw leprechaun in there just in case we want to find anything else that doesn't exist.
Maturity and emotion don't exist?
Your source doesn't exist. You might as well look for leprechauns.
We weren't talking about the source. We were talking about the keywords that I was using to search for sources.
For your imaginary source that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you're being a child right now.
You're too dumb to realize your source doesn't exist. You're wasting everybody's time, and I'm the child now. Okay.
How do you know the source doesn't exist? You haven't even
Because
searched for it.
it's called common sense. I have the ability to reason. That's how I know you're so dumb. You don't even understand that source doesn't exist. It can't possibly exist.
Reasoning.
A reasonable person would understand that. Since you're too dumb to use your brain, you obviously think this source exists. That's how I know you're a dummy.
Your standard for determining who is not a dummy is just preposterous.
Well, I'm pretty sure you fit that dummy standard, so it's a valid standard.
Sure.
Giggly, dismissive dummy. See, it fits. You fit the profile perfectly. I could write what a dummy is, and you'd fit that before I even met you.
Why would you get to write what a dummy is?
Because I'm a smart person, an educated person.
How are you educated? Where were you educated?
Hello? Where were guys educated when they invented the wheel, when they invented computers, when they invented cars? Where was Bill Gates educated when he dropped out of college? Where did they get there? I mean, again, you're so dumb.
College. He was educated.
Again, you're so dumb. You don't realize that some of the brightest guys didn't even have a formal education and didn't graduate. Some of the biggest no, they didn't. Some of the biggest companies, the guys who are CEOs of the biggest companies in the world, didn't graduate college. They dropped out.
They still went to college.
They dropped out. They didn't complete. They did not complete. They did not complete. You know, a homeless person could get in on affirmative action if they're a black Indian and still not graduate college. So the fact that they're in college, the fact that they're wearing a university sweater, if they're wearing a university sweater, if I go buy a Harvard sweater and I stand on Harvard campus, that makes me educated. I can put my hand on the Harvard steps and absorb the education. You're so dumb you actually think that's a valid education. Just enrolling at the college. I guess that qualifies you.
Classes if you don't even attend a class.
You're so dumb. I just told you some of the most brightest guys in the world didn't finish college, and now you're telling me the fact that they just attended is good enough. That's how dumb you are.
I'm not saying that's good enough.
That's how dumb you are. You think that just attending, just enrolling, just the fact that they enrolled is good enough for you. You just said they didn't even finish. They didn't even finish college, and you just said, "Well, they went."
That's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying? You haven't said anything intelligent yet.
You're not letting me talk.
Go ahead, say it. Let's hear your intelligent point.
your standard of intelligence is just, I don't even know what it is at this point, because you didn't.
Look, every time I let you talk, you're so dumb you can't even complete the point. That's why I don't even listen to your point. Listen, we were talking about qualifications and standards, and you're too dumb to even focus on the main point. You didn't even address the point. You immediately went to something else that is not even the direct main point we were arguing about. That's why it was pointless to listen to you. I already know you're dumb, so I already know your point's going to be irrelevant. That's why I interrupted your point. You proved my point. You could have very easily, as an educated person, stated your point. Staying on point with the argument, the point that we're arguing. No, you didn't. You immediately went to some other generic, general statement that had no bearing on the person that we were discussing going to college and finishing college. You didn't even complete that point. You didn't even bother with that point.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't. Make the point right now. Let me hear your ridiculous rationale for this. Make the point right now. Go ahead.
Okay.
So for these leaders of industry, for these inventors, for these innovators who didn't finish college, your point was?
If you're going to keep interrupting me, what's
No, I'm steering you back onto point since you're too dumb to state the point. I have to steer you back onto it. I just steered you back onto it. Now you go ahead and finish it.
I barely said 2 words, dear.
Yes, because you're too dumb to stand point. I just put you back on point. Now go ahead and finish it. Finish your point.
The standard for determining whether or not somebody's intelligent is a very subjective standard, and I think that you using your standard as
what does this have to do with the leaders? What does this have to do with the leaders of industries or innovators who haven't graduated college? You're not addressing that point. This is the whole point we're arguing right now.
You won't even let me get to it.
Get to it. Go ahead. I'm going to give you leeway. Go ahead. Continue your full argument. Go ahead.
Oh, aren't you just so gracious?
Well, aren't you a condescending cunt? But I'm still allowing you to continue. Go ahead.
You're an impatient little prick. You won't let somebody finish
You're too fucking dumb to even state your point correctly. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
Yes, I am. You're just impatient.
Go ahead. State it. State it. Prove me wrong. State it right now. Prove me wrong.
Why should I? You're just gonna.
You're too dumb to state your point. I just told you. I'm gonna let you state your full point.
Why are you continuing?
I'm not gonna talk until you say it's okay to talk. Until you say you finish your point. I want you to put up your hand when you finish your point. Go ahead.
My point is that the standard that you are using to determine what is and is not intelligent is subjective, and being subjective is not an argument for who should and who should not be allowed in academia, and whether or not academia is credible. And so, let me think about the way I'm going to word this for a minute, because wording is important. So, your assertion that I'm too dumb to, and that women are too dumb to go to college, and colleges aren't credible because women attend them, is a very subjective, and it's a biased viewpoint, and I hope that you would recognize that is a subjective viewpoint. But putting that aside for a minute, if we're going to talk about, the men who invented things and the fact that they didn't receive formal education, it really depends on how you're defining intelligence and how you're defining education. Because if you're defining formal education as having graduated college, then I don't think that's a fair definition of what education is. Because education isn't just academic. But at the same time, there has to be a standard for what is and is not expertise. And that's what I was challenging you to provide me with, is what is your expertise? But then you fall back on the fallacy of, academia's standards of what is expertise are bullshit because women are allowed to go to college. And I think that's just preposterous, because you have yet been able to prove why allowing women to attend college has made colleges, discreditable. So that's my point.
Can I rebut now?
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, you just contradicted yourself and you didn't even realize it. No, you kept harping on college being a standard of academia or of intelligence or some kind of standard that everybody should be held to. And your very first statement was that it's subjective. It doesn't matter. I didn't say it didn't matter. Are you interrupting me now? So you don't give me the same courtesy. You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. You want to correct me, but you don't allow me the same courtesy of correcting you. You're a hypocrite. You're a child. I just proved it.
I'm not going to allow somebody to sit there.
You're not allowed. You're not going to allow. So it's okay for you to not allow, but not for me to not allow? I can't correct your absurdities. I can't correct your assumptions, but you're going to sit there and say, I'm going to be indignant and not allow it. So it's okay if you don't allow the argument, but I have to abide by your rules?
It's a matter of respect.
It's a matter of you're allowed to talk over me as a matter of respect, but I'm not allowed to talk over you as a matter of respect. Do you see how fucking dumb you are? You have no standard. You're so dumb. You have no consistent standard. You're so dumb. You have no consistent standard. You're
That was never my
so
standard.
dumb. You
That was
have
never my
no
standard.
consistent standard.
That was never my
You're
standard.
too dumb to have a standard.
That was never
You're
my
too
standard.
dumb to have a
I
standard.
have a standard.
No,
That
you
is
don't.
not
You're
it.
too dumb to have a
I
standard.
have a standard. That is not it.
You're a little kid. You have no standard. You have a waffling standard.
It wasn't waffling.
I just demonstrated it waffled.
No, you didn't.
You're too dumb to
You
even
didn't
hear
let me
it.
explain. You didn't
I
let
didn't
me
let you explain. You're not letting me explain. You're accusing me of not letting you explain while interrupting me. That's how dumb you are.
If I were twisting your
That
words,
is how dumb you are.
Then let me make it fair. If I was
Now you're going to make it fair. I can't wait for this stipulation. Go ahead. Tell me how you're going to make it fair.
Let me finish. If I were being unfair and twisting your words,
Right.
I would think it would be fair for you to interrupt me and stop me before.
Yeah, then what do you think I've been doing? That's exactly what I've been doing.
When have I twisted your words? And when have I
On many occasions.
Example.
What are you talking about? This whole interview you've been twisting things and I've had to correct you. And then you whine like a little baby and you wanted your time to complete your point. And I said, like an adult, I made an agreement with you. I made a standard. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to talk until you finish your point. I established a standard because I'm credible. I'm intelligent. I'm an adult. Unlike you, you're too dumb. You're a child to even stick to your own standard. That's how dumb you are. You can't even keep your own standard. And then you try to modify the rules now. Well, now if you're putting words in my mouth or if you're being inconsistent, I have to correct that while you're in the middle of talking. Well, okay, then you shouldn't complain if I do the same thing. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm correcting your assumptions or I'm challenging your bullshit logic, your chick logic. You're too dumb to understand this.
This isn't only chick logic, by the way. There are a ton of
No, it's definitely chick logic. Only a chick could be this dumb. It's definitely chick logic.
Here's the deal. This interview is
Tell me
over
the deal.
because
Tell me the deal.
You are clearly not an academic.
No, you're too dumb. Of course, you're not even
interview is
qualified.
This
interview is over. Court is adjourned.
This interview is over because this is a pathetic excuse and your standards are out of whack. And
You
your
are
standards
too
really
dumb
are.
to be establishing any kind of standards. You are too dumb to be even talking about standards. You are too dumb to be talking about standards.
Why are you talking about standards when you
Because
haven't
I'm smart and you're dumb. I'm trying to educate you. That's my job.
You're so cocky. Okay.
I'm not cocky. I'm qualified. You're a dummy. I'm not a dummy. You're a dummy. You're a dummy. I'm not a dummy. That means I'm qualified. You're a dummy. You're a dummy. I'm not a dummy. That means I'm qualified to teach you. You're a dummy. I'm not a dummy. Therefore, I'm qualified to teach you. You're a dummy. I'm not a dummy. That's why I'm qualified to teach you.
And no,
Yes.
that's not a real qualification.
That is a real qualification.
No real
If we were on a desert island, and you were a dummy, we would have a vote. We wouldn't have academic institutions to rely on. How would we determine anything without these academic institutions and credentials? Well, we'd look and see who was the dummy. We would apply public scrutiny, wouldn't we? We would say, oh, who here on this island wants this dummy leading us? And everybody would say, no, she's proven to be too dumb to lead us. We're going to rely on this guy over here who's demonstrated competence, who's demonstrated he can make a rational conclusion.
And where would the public be without education?
That is education. This is education. You're getting an education. You need to realize that you're a dummy before you can even be educated.
No, you didn't answer the question.
I did answer the question. I answered it right here, right now. What are you talking about? I just answered it.
You completely avoided the question. Where would the public be without education?
I just told you, dummy. This isn't education.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. When you learn something, look, dummy, when you learn something, that is called educating. That's an education where your perspective changes. According to dummies like you, an education means going to a classroom, a formal classroom, and reading a book and getting a diploma. That to you is education. That is schooling. That is schooling. That is not an education. That is not a guaranteed education.
That's not how I define education.
You should have listened to your famous feminist Mark Twain who said, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education. If you understood that, you'd understand that formal institutions don't dictate.
The definition you're
Then you're absurd when you keep harping on academic credentials as if they matter.
They do matter.
Again, you're going back on your own statements. Now you're contradicting yourself again.
Let me explain why they matter.
You just denied that. You just said in your opening statement about when I gave you time to prove your point about Steve Jobs and others who didn't graduate from college. You just said, "Oh, some people the educational system doesn't matter. It's not certain. It's subjective." That's exactly what you said. I was listening to you. No, it's exactly what you said. I can play it back for you. When we play it back, we'll know exactly what you said. No, that's exactly what you said.
Play it back.
We will. You'll hear it. You'll get to play it back yourself a billion
right
times.
now.
I can't. It's in the middle of the recording. I'd have to stop it just to get to it.
Do it. Prove it.
No, you'll be able to listen to it, and you'll be able to see for yourself. You'll get the proof yourself.
Do it right now.
I just told you. I'd have to stop the recording and search for it. Yeah, but
standard.
you're too dumb to maintain a standard. You're too dumb to maintain a standard. You have to be intelligent. You have to be an adult to maintain a standard. You have to be accountable to maintain a standard.
And all you have are insults at this point.
Well, yes, the truth is insulting to dummies. The truth is the biggest insult 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 to dummies. If you're a dummy, the truth is always going to be insulting to you 100% of the time. When you hear a fact, that's going to be insulting to your intelligence. Reason is insulting to dummies. That's why you feel insulted. You feel insulted by a reasonable person who's holding you to a standard. If I was dumb like you, I would also feel insulted.
All right. Here's the thing.
Tell me the thing.
The thing is, let me see how I can word this because words are important.
Yeah, because words are important. I like this is your famous saying. Words are important. Let me see how to word this because words are important. Words aren't important to you. Words are a standard. You don't care about standards. How are words important to you?
How many times have I asked you to define something and you haven't? Words are incredibly important.
No, you're too dumb to even know how to define something. I challenge you to define something. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You demonstrated you couldn't do it. You're too dumb to do it.
I'm attempting to rationalize with you.
You're too dumb to rationalize with me. You just proved you couldn't even make a rational point. You keep saying that. You keep saying that, but you're so dumb. You're so dumb you can't even maintain your own standard. You told me the interview was over 5 hours ago. 7 different times. 7 different times you told me, the interview's over, the interview's over, the interview's over. That's how dumb you are. You can't even maintain your own standard. You said the interview's over, and now you're still here. You proved you have no standard. You prove that what you say doesn't matter, because you've repeatedly said that the interview's over. You've repeatedly said the interview's over, and you're too dumb to maintain your own standard.
Well, let me make my finishing remarks.
Your finishing remarks. That's the excuse you're going with? You're so dumb. You don't realize you said the interview's over an hour period. Repeated it countless times. This interview's over. This interview's over. This interview's over. And now you want to tell me you have finishing remarks? That's the only reason why you didn't finish?
My remark before I said adieu.
No, you're too dumb to make. You're too dumb to make a rational point. Yeah, that's exactly how we know you're not an adult. That's exactly why we know you're not an adult. You can't make a rational point.
All right, but you know what adults do? They do walk away from conversations with people who...
Oh, do they walk away after declaring they're going to walk away 7 times or 8 times? Do they do it over an hour period? Oh, she finally rage quit. She finally maintained her standard. Thank you for another wonderful Manhood Academy interview with a feminist.